that they will provide protection for rights in a no-deal situation, we will continue to press them all to reciprocate.
Hilary Benn.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday the Prime Minister said to the House that she would reach out in order to try and find a way forward from the crisis that is facing our country. But I'm sorry to say that, having listened to her statement this afternoon, while her door may have been open, her mind has remained closed because she has rejected stopping us leaving the EU with no deal, even though she knows it would be disastrous, and she has rejected remaining in a customs union, even though she knows it is essential, an essential contribution to keeping an open border and maintaining friction-free trade. The Brexit Select Committee last Wednesday published a report identifying a number of alternative ways forward and recommended that they be put to the House in a series of indicative votes. Since the Prime Minister has twice this afternoon said, well, what is it that will secure the support of the House, will she now put those to the vote?
The Right Honourable Gentleman knows that the Government will be tabling a neutral motion next Tuesday. That is what is required under the legislation, and that will now be, and that is an amendable motion. But the Right Honourable Gentleman again referenced this issue of rejecting no deal. As I said earlier, if people don't want no deal, there are only two ways to go, and it's no good honourable members from a sedentary position chuntering or shouting about this issue. The sheer facts are that no deal will only be taken off the table by either revoking Article 50, which turns back the result of the referendum, the Government will not do that, or by having a deal, and that's what we're trying to work out.
Andrea Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, today the Shadow International Trade Secretary visited my constituency and said to the BBC, I quote, "If there is a motion for a second referendum that is put before Parliament, our position and the party is that we would be supporting a public vote." Does the Prime Minister agree with me, and I'm sure many Brexiteers in the north of England, that a second referendum would be a sellout and cause a huge amount of harm to trust in politicians?
I do agree with my honourable friend. Because I believe that the British, a lot of people voted for the first time, or for the first time in many years, in the referendum in 2016. And I think their faith in politicians would be shattered if we failed to deliver on that vote. We have a duty to deliver on that vote in the referendum.
Angela Eagle.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister could reach out by relaxing her own self-imposed red lines, which would include thinking about other solutions, such as staying in the customs union, which would deal with the backstop situation. But she seems intent on only trying to get her dead deal through the House by playing chicken with her own Brexiteers and what she calls her confidence and supply partners. So will she, first of all, tell us that she really does want to reach out? And secondly, will she tell the House, if we do amend this motion next Tuesday, will she respect that decision and put it into effect?
Can I say to the Honourable Lady that, of course, as I've said, it is possible for people to move amendments to the motion next Tuesday. We wanted to sit down with all parties and with different groups across the House, because there are different opinions on these issues in parties across this House, and find out where it is that it will be possible to secure support for a deal, to take that forward, to ensure that we leave with a deal. But underpinning that, of course, is the importance of us delivering on the referendum. I believe it is a duty for this Parliament to deliver on the referendum, to deliver Brexit, and to deliver a Brexit with a deal.
John Redwood.
A majority of voters in the referendum voted to leave and did not vote to sign a new comprehensive treaty binding us back into features of the EU. But I think a big majority in the country would welcome a comprehensive free trade agreement and use of Article 24 of the GAP while we're negotiating it. So will my right honourable friend, when she goes back to Brussels, table such a comprehensive free trade agreement and see if that breaks the logjam?
Can I say to my right honourable friend that we have been looking at a free trade area, a free trade agreement with the European Union. I just want to ensure that that is as ambitious as possible, and that's what is set out in the political declaration.
Lucy Powell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The only thing we know for certain that people voted for in the referendum was to leave the EU. Any other speculation is simply that. So I repeat the question that my right honourable friend, the member for Doncaster North, put earlier. Amazingly, she didn't even mention the words customs union in her statement. But if this House voted to either remain in a customs union or to remain in EFTA or the EEA, all issues that were raised with her by her own MPs when she met them last week, will she adhere to that?
As I've said, obviously it will be for people to amend the motion that takes place next week to see whether there is. What I say to the, can I just say to the right honourable lady, she's making some assumptions about the views of people across this House, which actually have not been. Which have not been reflected by the discussions that we have had with members across this House.
Sir Hugo Swire.
The friend is absolutely right to reject ruling out a no deal. Can I also say, for those of us like myself who did not support the government's withdrawal agreement on the basis of the backstop, if she can return from Brussels with something which is legally enforceable on this one area, I believe that she will carry most of the House with her.
Well said.
Thank my right honourable friend for his comment. It has been clear in the conversations that we have had that in the specifics of the withdrawal agreement it is the backstop that is the issue, and that is why we'll be working hard to find a resolution of it.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
The Prime Minister knows that farming is integral to Welsh heritage. It is the beating heart of our rural economy. But she must also understand this. When she humours the idea of a no-deal Brexit, she freezes the heart's blood of our communities. When I meet with Welsh farmers this week, on what grounds can I possibly assure them that Westminster defends their interests when the Prime Minister would evidently prefer no deal to a people's vote?
I say to the honourable lady that I've given my response to the issue of a people's vote second referendum previously. I was pleased to meet, after we had negotiated the deal with the European Union, I was pleased to meet with Welsh farmers, and they were supporting their deal. They believed that it would be a good deal for Welsh farmers.
Sir Patrick McLaughlin.
Bearing in mind that the Leader of the Opposition has a reputation for meeting with almost any organisation in the world, my constituents found it very distasteful that he was not prepared to give up his time to meet the Prime Minister. Will my right honourable friend assure the House that actually there have been a number of occasions when the House has given her instructions? The House has given the government an instruction about holding a referendum. The House has given an instruction about the date that we leave the European Union, and the Prime Minister is doing her utmost to carry out those commands.
Can I thank my right honourable friend? I think there are a number of people who are surprised at the Leader of the Opposition's unwillingness to meet with me as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom when he has met with other groups who do not have the national interest of this country at heart, and I am absolutely working to deliver, as my right honourable friend says, on the instructions of this Parliament that we leave the European Union on the 29th of March.
Kate Hoey.
Speaker, can I welcome the Prime Minister ruling out a second referendum and ruling out revoking Article 50 and leaving a WTO, whether managed or not, deal on the table. But could I just say to her, this is a Remain Parliament. The majority of people, MPs in this Parliament voted to remain. Would she not think that one of the ways that we could show we are honouring what the people said would be to speed up the numbers of statutory instruments that needs to be got through this Parliament, the numbers of legislation that needs to be get through, so that we can actually get out on March the 29th.
Well, can I say to the right honourable lady that we have been obviously laying statutory instruments. Getting statutory instruments through this House, of course, does require the usual channels to work together, and I'm sure that her party front bench, will have heard the interest that she has in ensuring those statutory instruments are able to go through this House.
Dominic Raab.
I welcome the Prime Minister's statement and support her determination to return to Brussels to secure changes, particularly to the backstop. given what she said in her statement, can I urge my right honourable friend to not just rule out revoking Article 50, but rule out extending it, because that would give businesses certainty and give the public some finality and some reassurance that we will leave at the end of March, as promised.
I hope, give my right honourable friend the reassurance that what I'm working for is to find a deal that will secure the support of this House such that we can leave and will leave the European Union on the 29th of March.
We're streeting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is now clear that the Prime Minister is counting on the House of Commons to rule out her red lines because she lacks the political authority to do so. But will she also accept and understand that whether it's her dead deal, no deal, Norway or no Brexit, all of the options that lie ahead are substantially different to what people were promised during the referendum? Given that, does she not understand there is not just a practical desire for a new referendum to break the parliamentary deadlock, but a moral imperative to make sure that it's the people that agree this country's future for generations to come?
Honourable gentleman, I apologise that I didn't have an immediate recall of the fact, but I wish the honourable gentleman a happy birthday, and I observe, probably not for the first time or the last, that he seems to me to be a very youthful fellow. The Prime Minister.
I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to echo the many happy returns, happy birthday to the honourable gentleman. But can I say to him that I think when people voted in the referendum, they voted to leave the European Union. They voted to ensure that free movement came to an end. I think there were those who voted to ensure that we had an independent trade policy, those who voted to ensure there was no control from the remit of the European Court of Justice here in the United Kingdom, and those who were concerned about the money that was sent every year to the European Union. And it is delivering on those that I think it's important that this Parliament focuses on.
George Freeman.
Speaker, can I welcome the Prime Minister's statement, in particular her commitment to waive the fee required to be paid by European citizens, and her commitment to reach out cross-party in pursuit of a Brexit deal. We have to honour that referendum. Would she agree with me that while the Leader of the Opposition's position on Brexit is crystal clear, he's for leave up north and remain down south, there are many backbench Labour colleagues who have very serious Brexit voting constituencies who are looking for a way to honour the referendum result with us? And would she support those talks in trying to find a moderate, sensible, orderly Brexit that can deliver for the majority of the British people?
Can I thank my honourable friend for pointing out the inconsistencies in the Leader of the Opposition's position on this particular issue. I am working to ensure that we can deliver, that we can find that way through that enables us to leave the European Union, to leave in a smooth and orderly way, to leave with a deal, and to leave with a deal that is good for people across the whole of the United Kingdom.
Frank Field.
The Prime Minister is spending time reaching out to the House of Commons. Might we have a chance to reach out to her? During her statement, she made a number of assertions about what the opinions were of this House, but none of us know what the opinions of this House are or is. Might, therefore, when I table amendment on indicative votes, might the Prime Minister make that government policy so that we can openly and our constituents see how we are voting, not how we are privately lobbying, on what guidance we wish to give to the Prime Minister?
The right honourable gentleman says I made a number of assertions in my statement. I made a number of comments that were based on the discussions that we have had so far with people from across this House, and we will continue to have those discussions. And I'm sure the right honourable gentleman will. As I've indicated earlier, there is a neutral motion that is amendable next week, but the comments I made on the views of people across the House were based on the discussions that we've had. There are further discussions to be had.
Heidi Allen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to start by thanking the Prime Minister for offering to waive the £65 fee for EU citizens. I have a significant number in my constituency in South Cambridge in the scientific and research communities who will be relieved. However, what they won't be relieved about, and neither will I, will the fact that Now, almost a week has gone on since the vote that was so significantly lost in this place, and yet we have no further information today about what the government's position is. Surely we cannot go on for yet another week. That's wasting another 2 weeks in total without some direction. So many members in this House today have suggested customs union, people's vote, indicative votes. The Prime Minister must commit to honouring one of those next week.
To my honourable friend, I set out in the statement that I made the areas on which the issues that had come up during the discussions we've had with members across this House. We will continue to have those discussions, and we are addressing those issues that I identified in my statement.
Jo Swinson.
I cannot believe that in good conscience, knowing what the Prime Minister does about the devastating impact of no deal on our economy and on our security, that she is willing to let us leave the EU on that basis. Yet she seems wedded to her red lines and still against a people's vote, which would have majority support if she backed it. With 67 days to go, the country deserves better than a massive game of chicken in the Tory party. When will the Prime Minister recognise she needs to move?
To the Right Honourable Lady, that she talks about the issue of no deal. It is not good enough simply to say that somebody doesn't want no deal. You could only deliver not having no deal, as I've said, in two ways. Now, there may be members of the Liberal Democrat Party who have a different view from me on whether or not we should stay in the European Union. I believe we should honour the result of the referendum in 2016. But the only other way to ensure that we don't leave with no deal is to leave with a deal. It's pretty simple.
Priti Patel.
I welcome the Prime Minister's recognition of the difficulties that have been raised around the backstop. So when the Prime Minister goes to Brussels, is she prepared to reopen the text of the withdrawal agreement in order to actually address many of the concerns that she has heard from many members, and right honourable members of the House with regards to the backstop?
My right honourable friend, what we are doing is talking to members across this House to identify the various ways in which it would be possible to address this issue of the backstop. A number of options have been raised with us, and we are looking at all those options that have been raised.
Chris Leslie.
When the Prime Minister says there are only two ways to rule out a no-deal scenario, why does she keep leaving out the option of a people's vote?
Exactly.
It's true that would involve extending, seeking to extend Article 50.